Hi there. My name is Brian Donovan with the American Association of Snowboard Instructors.
Hold up, hold up, hold up. That's the intro to my national team video. It is who I am, but here's what I look like without all my gear on. My name is Brian Donovan. I'm with the American Association of Snowboard Instructors and PSIA-E-AASI as a whole. I'm an Eastern Division ASI examiner. I'm a member of the ASI Eastern team getting ready for the national team tryouts in 2021. And I have a couple things I just want to talk to you tonight about regarding fitness. My presentation tonight is really two parts. Part one is dealing with balance, and balance has been surrounded in all of the presentations you've seen in this three-part series. Balance is so much more than we give it credit for, and it's something that doesn't stop in the off-season. As all of you know, skiing and snowboarding involve balance in motion, balance sliding down a hill on a slippery surface with slippery gear. Part one of my talk tonight is how do we work on this dynamic balance without having snow? How do I work on this in my environment? I'm going to teach you a couple ways to build some balance tools similar to what you've seen in some of the other presentations. I'm going to show you some movements, some activities, just some ways to move and pay attention to how you move. And it's going to translate to your skiing. It's going to translate to your snowboarding. It translates to my skiing and my snowboarding. It's stuff I'm doing right now to get ready to be on snow. Dynamically, there's that word. That's a $100 word that we so often use without really ever giving root understanding of what it is. And for me, dynamic means being able to move on top of our gear, using all the things our body can do: flexion, extension, rotation, moving with different intents and purposes, moving with a very desired impact of how it's going to affect the gear underneath our feet to get a desired and purposeful outcome. That word purposeful is really what I think dynamic stems from, is that I can move all sorts of ways. I can be flexing and extending. I can be jumping around. But if it doesn't have a purpose, it's not necessarily helping my snowboarding. It's not necessarily helping my skiing. And so dynamic for me really ties together when it has a purpose tied to that movement. And that movement specifically makes our gear do something. Or we move because our gear is doing something and we want to balance on top of it. That's when we get into this dynamic realm of what does this word dynamic mean? One of the greatest concepts that I've taken into my snowboarding that absolutely 100% helps with snowboarding, helps with skiing, is the idea of being able to shorten one leg, both legs, one leg, the other leg, vice versa, but shorten your legs underneath you without moving your upper body and your hips outside of your base of support. There's that word, base of support. You hear that word all the time now in the fundamentals. We talk about the base of support, the thing we're standing on, how to move our center of mass along the gear, above the gear, to manage the base of support. But tonight I just want to focus on how do we shorten our legs underneath us without moving this thing way outside of our base of support that keeps us upright. How do we shorten our legs? How do we bring one leg up underneath us and still be athletic on both legs? And then vice versa. We bring this leg up underneath us, but we're athletic with both legs. We're not just camped out on one leg, hanging out, but we can still be athletic, and we can still do this underneath us. That's the gateway move that I just want to communicate tonight with a couple ideas of how to practice it.
Enough talking. Time to get up and move. You'll notice in this first example, I'm standing on top of a skateboard. And I'm not asking you to go this extreme right out of the gate, but I want to show something. I want it to be visual, exactly what's going on. Notice that you can shorten your legs up underneath your body as long as you don't move too much lengthwise up on top of the gear. By keeping my hips over top of my feet, I'm able to shorten my legs up underneath me. I'm able to stay in balance. I'm able to be athletic. I'm able to balance. But watch what happens when I don't manage my hips above my feet. If I let my hips get too far outside of my feet lengthwise along the board, all of a sudden I get to a point where I can't recover from. The wall's here to save me in this situation. But when I get out on snow, I'm not able to recover from that position because I get too far outside my base of support. One more time, let's just pay attention to staying stacked above the gear. Keeping the hips inside the feet enough that we can be athletic without letting the hips get too far outside the feet along the length of the gear in this situation. One low consequence way to start to practice these movements is get yourself a 4x4, 6x6, something at your local hardware store. Drop it in your front yard. Start walking around on it. Find out where your hips are in relationship to your feet. Pay attention to how your feet roll and manipulate, and how you use the muscles and the ligaments and tendons in your ankle to really balance on top of your feet as you move around on something that's skinny, something that you have to balance on, something you have to keep your hips over top of. Notice in this exercise, I'm exploring standing on top of one foot, staying balanced, keeping my hips stacked over the foot that's in contact with the board. I'm shortening the other leg. I'm moving it out to the side, bringing it up underneath me, pushing out in front of me. I'm exploring all the range of motion on the foot that is not the foot that I'm balancing on. Symmetry is important to everything we do. So obviously everything I do on my left foot, I'm going to do on my right foot. Whenever I'm teaching lessons on snow, I'm constantly reminding my students that their feet are doing some cool things, but they don't need to watch them to know that. Same things apply here. As you're starting to walk around on boards, as you're starting to balance, you don't need to pay attention to your feet. Keep your head and eyes up. Keep your hips underneath you. Good posture, good alignment of the spine. All those things we tell our students on snow apply to us as we're training cross-discipline here. As we finish this exercise, really just play with what is possible. How far can you move your hips outside of your feet before you start to lose your balance? Feel your ankle, feel the muscles, feel your foot manipulating to keep yourself in balance. Feel it from the feet up, just like you do when you're skiing and snowboarding. It's really important to understand how your feet, how your ankles, how your knees, how your hips all move underneath you in order for you to maintain balance and be athletic. In this next exercise, work on shuffling down the board, crossing your feet over top of each other. Work on moving side to side laterally. Really get that balance moving as you're rolling your foot from the inside of the arch to the outside of the foot, crossing over or shuffling, balancing along the length of the snowboard or side to side, ski to ski. Really get that sensation moving on a narrow board that you have to balance on. And just like before, symmetry is key. Everything you do to the left, make sure you do it to the right. For this next exercise, get yourself a 2x6, a 2x4, get you some piece of wood. You're going to lay it across the 4x4, the 6x6 you have on the ground. You're going to work your way up onto it. You're going to start to lean back and forth. But we want the motion to really come by shortening your legs underneath you, keeping those hips over top of the base of support. For the skiers, it's going to feel like moving foot to foot. For the snowboarders, it's going to feel like fore aft. You're shortening one leg, then you're lengthening it. The legs are passing each other. What we want to avoid is letting the hips or the shoulders or the center of mass or the head, basically anything above the lower body, we want to avoid that dictating these movements. Don't let that move so far that your hips and your center of mass get outside your feet and it causes you to get outside of your center balance. The ideal for this movement is that it's happening with the lower body. This is a lower body, active, athletic, balanced movement that we're trying to make. The visuals, you're milking the cow, the pistons in the engine, however you want to visualize it. One leg's getting short while the other leg's getting long, and then they switch places. This next part is for all those do-it-yourselfers out there. If DIY is your style, I have a really cool way you can make a balance board. All you're going to need is a 2-liter bottle of soda, roll of tape, a skateboard, 2x4, 2x6, some type of piece of wood, and we're going to make a balance bar. You're going to fill the 2-liter bottle with water all the way up the neck, screw on the cap nice and tight. You're going to take your tape. It can be duct tape, it can be Gorilla tape, any kind of tape on the cap. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take tape and you're going to tape around the barrel of the bottle. You're going to put a bunch of tape on. It's going to give it some texture. It's going to give it some grip. And this is going to create your balance bar. Now it's time to take your skateboard, 2x4, 2x6, whatever your piece of wood is, set it down, center it, and hop on board. All the things we've been talking about, being able to shorten one leg and then lengthen the other, and then switch them, shorten the other leg, lengthen the first leg. Keeping your hips above the base of support, not getting your hips and your center of mass and your shoulders outside of those hips along the length of the gear. The possibilities are limitless. Have some fun.
The single biggest gateway move I see our membership struggle with is understanding where your center mass is in relation to the things that you're balancing on. Your feet, your boots, your board, your skis, whatever you're balancing atop, how is our center mass moving above and with that and against that, and how does it help us balance as we move dynamically? So now that you've seen the extensive jungle gym you can build at home using things like 2x4s and 4x4s and bottles of pop or soda, depending upon what you call them, where you come from, skateboards, balance bars. Now you've seen some of the stuff that I like to use to be creative in how I train. Go out and build it. I would love nothing more than to see some ridiculous videos over the next 2 months as people are ramping up to winter. And I'd love to see what you're doing. I'd love to see it on Facebook and the PSIA Eastern groups and the ASI snowboard groups. I'd love to see you take some of the things you've learned over the last couple weeks in these webinars and go out and be ready for winter. Because we all know that winter is way more enjoyable when we're ready for it, we're prepared for it, we're fit, we're athletic, we're thinking about it. We all know it's way more enjoyable. Now, part 2 of my talk tonight gets into a whole lot different territory when it comes to fitness. And it gets into how do we use fitness to get back to where we were if we ever suffer a setback, if we ever suffer an injury, if we have nagging injuries, if we've abused our bodies for years and years and years, and our bodies don't like to wake up and we feel stiff and like we need oiled like the Tin Man every morning. Part 2 is going to talk about how do we recover when we have setbacks physically, mentally. How do we get back to where we were? How do we exceed where we were? I'm going to share some of my own personal experiences. Now, part 2 is not to be a sob story or not to be a scary story, but I'm going to give you a heads up. There's talk about getting hurt. And if that's the type of thing that makes you shut down or you don't want to hear, I would mute the next couple of minutes because we're going to talk about being hurt and my experiences being hurt and what I had to go through to get back to where I was before being hurt. I mentioned earlier, I'm on the current ASI Eastern team, getting ready for national team trouts next spring at Breckenridge. I've been on the Eastern team for about 10 years now, and I've tried out for the national team a couple times, and I'm going to talk about that journey. And I'm talking about in 2012, I went to national team tryouts. We were at Copper Mountain, and it was day 1 of the tryouts, and everybody was amped up. You've been working for this your whole life. You're working towards what you're excited about that week to show what you're bringing to the table, who you are, what you can do, how you teach, all those exciting things that we all bring to the table. And I decided to hit a really big jump and go a little bit too far. And I went a little bit too far, and when I landed with enough impact that I actually broke my back in a couple places. Day 1 of national team trouts, and I am getting loaded into a ski patrol sled. Not how I envisioned this in the months, years, decade leading up to this moment. I did not envision myself in a ski patrol sled going down the mountain at national team trouts. But there it was. Long story short, I broke my back in a couple places and pretty severely. And I spent the next 4 or 5 days in a hospital. I spent another couple days in the Copper Village in a condo. I spent a couple days in Denver, acclimating as I moved down out of elevation. I got on a plane, I think 5 or 6 days after breaking my back, and I flew all the way back to Pennsylvania, where I was from. And then I started a long road to recovery. I was in an upper body cast for a couple months. I wasn't able to do anything. I couldn't climb a ladder. I couldn't do daily chores. I couldn't do anything. And it just drove me nuts. Going from being extremely active and athletic and loving to be just active in general to being sitting on a couch with a body cast on was absolute torture. And then as I started working through my recovery, I was going to physical therapy. I was going to all those things because I was determined I was going to come back. I wasn't going to let this be the thing that stopped me. I wasn't going to let this be the thing that defined me. And so I had a very specific goal. I was going to get back on snow. I was going to get back to exactly where I was. I had no idea how to get there or how to do that, but that was my goal. And 7 months to the day, I was on snow again. And that was the easy part. That was the part that took no mental toughness. That was the part that took no focus on real training. Getting back on snow was just the fact that my body was healed enough that I could be on snow. Then it got hard. I had never done yoga prior to breaking my back. You've seen yoga in this web series. I can attest that I didn't think anything of yoga until I started yoga. And then all of a sudden I realized that yoga made me sweaty, made me out of breath. It made me flexible. It gave me all sorts of things that I started to lose when I was in a body cast. And so I started doing yoga. I started stretching. I started doing all these things I never envisioned because I was trying to not feel like I wasn't athletic again. That was step 2. Step 2 was also pretty easy because all it took was me to say, hey, I'm doing yoga this day. I'm going to go for a walk this day. I'm going to go for a run this day. I'm going to stretch this day. Just following a schedule was step 2. That's easy. Step 1, let your body physically heal. Easy. Step 2, follow a schedule. Pretty easy. Step 3, holy crap, I'm afraid of snowboarding. I'm going to be real with you right now. I was terrified of doing the things on a snowboard that I had never thought twice about doing prior to breaking my back. I'd stand above a jump and I would say, oh, I don't know about this. Maybe I should just take a look at it. Maybe I should ride around it a couple times. My confidence was absolutely gone because the last time I had hit a jump, a big jump, I was in the hospital. Um, that was something I had never dealt with before. That was something I had never imagined I would ever have to go through or I'd ever have to overcome. I kind of got crazy. I started thinking about, how do I overcome this? Do I ride the jump with my eyes shut and just ignore it and then also open my eyes and go off the jump? Tried that a couple times. Do I try to hit the jump slower or faster or do different things to change it up so it's not quite the same as it was previous? Tried that. Didn't really work. I found myself in a spot where I was flat out scared of breaking my back again. And so what did I do? I went back to all the things we teach our students about jumping. I literally knocked the ground out from underneath my feet, and I went back to square one. Went back to jumping off of little moguls and little cat tracks and little things and just working on the fundamentals. Taking off, balanced in the air, landing flat. Okay, that didn't hurt. Okay, I rode away. Okay, it wasn't so bad. I kind of liked it. And that's the thing that you got to get back to. Like, why do I do this in the first place? Why do I ski? Why do I snowboard in the first place? It's because I absolutely enjoy the sport. I fall in love with going down the mountain on this crazy slippery slope with a crazy piece of gear attached to my feet. Why do I teach? Because I want to give people that love. So I had to get back to the root of me, of why I do this in the first place. And I had to make sure I was enjoying myself, because what I found was if I was just doing it to overcome it, I wasn't enjoying it. I found people were better than me at doing all the things I wanted to get back to being good at on a snowboard. I found the person who I thought rode groomers the best. I found the person who I thought rode in the trees the best and the bumps the best. I found people who I thought were the best in the park. And I just went and rode with them. I watched what they did. Followed them. I tried to imitate it. Maybe when they weren't watching, I tried to imitate it. Or I tried it when I went and rode the next day by myself when nobody was watching. I tried to do what they were doing. But I started to imitate. And I started to replicate. And I started to put mileage to it. And I'm not going to fool you. This didn't happen in December of the first year came back on snow. It's 2020. I broke my back in 2012. Not a single day on snow goes by that I don't think about the fact that I broke my back on snow. Where I've come to a situation over the last couple of years that I'm confident again in my ability to put myself in a place to be successful. And it's through these things. I run 3 times a week. I get up in the morning and I have a routine where I run. I ride a mountain bike all summer. I love skateboarding. I love being active. I love hiking, paddleboarding. I do all these things in the off season so that I can be confident, athletic, and successful in the winter. I take it to a whole new level about making sure that my core is strong, making sure that I'm doing things off snow to make sure that my muscles and my core, my back, my abs, my shoulders, my hips, my lower body, I make sure they're strong so that I set myself up in the best situation to not get injured or not have a setback. When I talked to Sue Kramer about doing this, she said that she would like it if I would just do a Q&A on the setbacks I've had in my career and what I've done to overcome them. And at first that kind of put me at a miss. I said, nobody's going to be interested in that. And you might not be. But what I want to say is I want to be a resource. I want to reach out to you right now through this medium and say that I've been hurt. I've had to develop ways to get back. Since being hurt, I've had a ton of people in our industry reach out to me. Hey, I've heard you broke your back. Hey, I hear you have a plate in your ankle. How'd you get back? How did you recover? What did you do? Let me be the roadmap. Let others in the industry be the roadmap of how to set yourself up physically to be in the best shape you can so that you don't have nagging injuries, so you don't have setbacks that can be avoidable. Not all are avoidable. We're going to have pulled muscles. We're going to have tweaked knees. We're going to have ankles that just wake up grumpy. We're going to have those nagging injuries. I want to be a resource so that you sit back and you think, I can come back. Mentally, I can come back. Physically, I can come back. I can get back to where I was. I can get to the next level. So it's possible. If you've had a knee issue, if you had a knee replacement, if you had hip issues, if you had ankle issues. Again, I have a metal plate and a cadaver fibula, or parts of a cadaver fibula. It works. I've been able to overcome that. And I'm back on snow, and I'm riding better, and I'm teaching better, coaching better than I've ever done. So it's possible. But I want you to take to heart all of the presenters you've seen in this web series. These people know what they're talking about. So things like slackline, things like yoga, things like going to the weight room, riding a bike, skateboarding, balance bars, stand-up paddling. Not only are they fun, but they're going to help you. They're going to help you be athletic. They're going to help you be strong. They're going to help you be able to resist injury or recover from injury. They're going to make you better at sliding on snow. And that's why you're here tonight, is to get a little bit of nuggets up here, get a little bit of thoughts or ideas to get better at sliding on snow, or more resilient, or more athletic, to take your skiing or your snowboarding to that next level. That's all I have for tonight. I wanted to be short and brief and give you some ideas on how to be mobile. I wanted to give you what I think is the gateway move to actually being dynamic when you're skiing and snowboarding, in terms of moving above your feet and moving above your gear. I wanted to talk about my journey, suffering some injuries, recovering from those injuries, getting to a place where I feel mentally and physically better, and how I did that, and what I continue to do that, because it's not a 5-month recovery. It's not a 1-year recovery. It's not a 5-year recovery. It's an ongoing recovery to get better. Always doing things mentally and physically to get better. And I hope that I was able to express that to a couple of you tonight. So thank you for listening to me again. Thank you from all of our presenters. I would love to open it up to Q&A on anything that I talked about. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the dedication to teaching. Thank you for the dedication to sliding. Thank you for being part of this organization.